Okay, this is a favourite location of mine, partly because it's very close to where I was born. This is the Forth Bridge in Scotland, just on the River Forth there. This is taken from South Queensferry, and I'd been in Glasgow all day photographing the festival there, and travelling home we were looking at the clouds and thinking that sky's not going to last long, it's going to do something fantastic. And sure enough, a short journey out was rewarded with a beautiful mackerel sky and some lovely pink colours in the clouds. Again, the 5-second exposure on this just blurs the movement of the water sufficiently that there's no real hard definition to the water. We're back to Northumberland again and Bamber Castle. This is taken late in the afternoon now. This is an August afternoon. In fact, this was on the drive home from the Forth Bridge. I stopped off again at Bamber, parked the car up, and fully intended sleeping in the car again that night for sunrise the following morning. Unfortunately, as with most things, sunrise didn't happen, but I got some fantastic light the night before. Again, a fairly long exposure. This time only 1.6 seconds, but still long enough to get some movement in the water. It just gives a different feel to the water as that a sharp focus picture wouldn't. Yeah, this is back to the field that my favourite trees are in, and I knew that something was going to happen here. This field, because it has a river at the bottom of it, normally fills with mist on particularly misty mornings. And because of the way the sun climbs, you can normally guarantee that the mist will clear within about 15-20 minutes of sunrise. And sure enough, it did. I was presented with a beautiful blanket of mist as I arrived, walked my way across the field, figured out what the composition was going to be, where the trees were going to be, and managed to play around. And composing these things, you tend to work in numbers. And although I've only got 2 bales here, I've actually got 3 items within the picture that form a trio of focal points. So your eye rests initially on the bale on the right hand side, and then follows round to the tree at the back, and you have a nice 3-point focus.
So you're saying generally odd numbers work?
Yeah, odd numbers tend to work better, 3, 5, 7, and obviously the fewer the better as well. Right. You don't want to overcomplicate the image.
Sure.
This was a very lucky shot. I arrived literally just as the sun was creating this firestorm in the sky. We were travelling up to a week in Scotland, a week in Glencoe, and had been driving up since 6 o'clock in the morning. As you see, this is just on 6:20 in the evening. We got to this location just as the sun was setting, and we were treated to a fantastic display. Fortunately, I knew the location that we were heading to, and I'd driven a little bit faster than I probably should have done in order to get here at a reasonable time, or in sufficient time to actually get the photograph. And so it was literally a race out of the car, set the camera up as you're heading towards the location, get it mounted on a tripod, get everything set up so that as soon as you plonk the feet down, you're ready to take the photograph.
And those strong colours there, the reds, are they as you saw it, do you think, or have you?
They are
fantastic.
Very much as we saw it, yeah.
And again, you've got foreground interest in the shot, which I know you like.
Yes, and I think without the foreground interest, it wouldn't have been quite so interesting.
Yeah.
Certainly, you would have seen a little bit more of the texture and of the reflection of the sky. But I think the green and the grey of the rocks in the left hand side just give you something to rest your eye on as you're leading into the picture.
So, what actual camera are you using for all of these, then, Colin?
Well, all of these pictures were taken on the same camera, and I used a 5D Mark 1, one of the original ones. It's a full-frame digital camera, and so a 17mm lens on that means it is the full 17mm. I've recently upgraded to a 6D, primarily because of the increased resolution. That's the word I was looking for. But also because it's still a full-frame camera.
Right. Okay. So this shot.
This is another favourite place of mine. This is the Pap of Glencoe on the left-hand side there. Well, it's taken late in the afternoon, just as the sun was setting. It has been a bit of a miserable afternoon, all told. You can see the colour in the sky there is quite grey, quite dark, and that's how it had been most of the afternoon. But there was a split in the cloud on the west-hand side, and as the sun broke through it, we were treated with this lovely lighting display, and you can see the band of bright light just resting on the mountains and the hills in the background there, and just on the underside of the clouds on the right hand side.
And have you used an ND filter for this?
Again, a graduated ND filter to bring the light intensity down a bit and balance it up a bit more. If I had been particularly pernickety about this one, I maybe would have also used a graduated ND on the water. It's something else I've started using just recently. So you invert it. So in fact you would use two, just to bring down some of the brightness in the foreground there. This is a very well-known scene. To anyone who has seen any pictures from Scotland will have probably seen a photograph of this particular place. This is Blackrock Cottage on Rannoch Moor. It's particularly iconic because it's a white cottage against the dark mountainous background. But it's also fairly well photographed because of its location. It is literally just off the main road and visible from the main road as you drive through Rannoch Moor. Again, using a wide-angle lens, but this time zooming into the 45mm just to try and isolate and compress the feel of depth within this image, trying to get bring the mountains slightly further forward in the image rather than being quite small as you would get with a wide-angle lens. Being a landscape photographer doesn't always mean taking landscapes. This is a picture of a bicycle that I'd actually taken the previous year. When I took it, in fact, no, probably about 18 months before, but when I took it the last time, it was in a slightly better state. It did actually have two wheels, but it hasn't moved from where it was last time. So obviously someone has left it where it was and either just forgotten about it or not bothered with it. You can take detailed shots of landscapes and create your own landscape within the landscape, and I enjoy doing these things. This is one of my favourite ones of the past year. This is up on the Old Man of Storr, on the Isle of Skye. What I particularly like about this one is that I wasn't actually going to go up there this day. I was staying in a B&B just down the road, probably about a 5-10 minute drive away. I got up, looked out the window, and it was miserable and actually raining. But I thought, no, I've come all this way, I'm on holiday for a week, so I will get out and go and have a look. And as I was driving, the rain was getting heavier. Got to the car park and it had eased off a little bit, but it was still quite cloudy. There was no hope of sunrise. But I thought, well, I'm here now. I'll put my walking boots on, get my stuff out of the car, and make the trek up. And it's from the car park up to this point, it's probably a good hour's walking. So in order to get the decent photographs, you've got to put a bit of effort in.
Sure.
You can't just get out of the car and expect the landscape to be there. You've got to put some effort in. You've got to make the long walk out of the car park and up into the hills. And I was rewarded on this day by some fantastic light. It lasted for 15-20 minutes and I got some fantastic photographs. And once it was over, the cloud covered in again and it turned to rain. But for that 15-20 minutes, it was well worth the effort. This was taken on the following day, I think, or 2 days later. Up on a place called the Quirang, up in Skye. Again, for those of you who know the area and have seen pictures before, will probably have seen this tree as well. It's quite well known for photographers who frequent that area. But for this one, it's all about the lighting. Again, I had to wait for the light. This was 10:20 in the morning. I had been there since 6 o'clock, I think. I'd wandered along. Sunrise didn't happen, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And you just need to be in the right place at the right time, and sometimes that means waiting 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours. Okay, this is Eilean Castle, just off of Skye. Again, it's another well-known picture. You probably don't know the name of it, but you may well have seen it on tins of shortbread from Scotland. It is very picture postcard. It is a beautiful location and you can have endless fun here. In fact, it's in such a good location that you can get up here at sunrise and stay all the way through to sunset. and take photographs all the way through the day, especially if you've got cloud cover like we had here, that's occasionally hiding the sun and creating some lovely pattern and texture in the sky.
Looking at the settings, I see that many of the shots you're using a slow shutter speed. Now, why? Just for the benefit of people who want to know more about the settings, why has that happened? Why are the shutter speeds so slow?
It's an unfortunate byproduct of the fact that because we're taking photographs either early morning or late evening, the light levels are slightly lower than they would be during midday. But also because the small aperture we're using isn't letting light in as fast as it would do if we had it wide open at f.
So obviously you're using the small aperture to get a wider depth of field.
That's right. Yes. If we were to photograph some of these images, say maybe f5.6 or 2.8, maybe even wide open at 1.8 if you're able to, then you wouldn't get as much depth of field as you do with a smaller aperture. The smaller aperture gives you that great depth of field, but it has the side effect of not letting light in as fast as it would do normally, so you have longer exposures. This one in particular has a long exposure because not only does it have a small aperture, but I also put a 3-stop full neutral density filter onto it, just specifically to slow down the recording of it, so that the water wasn't as sharp as it would have been at a normal exposure.